So I have the privilege and honor to be with Mariya today, and it truly is a privilege and honor, Mariya. So number one, thank you for making the time. For those of the individuals and people out there who have not heard of Mariya, she is definitely one that you have been missing. So I want to kind of just share a little bit about Mariya's background. Um, Two-time TEDx events that she's done, which are tremendous. I highly recommend them by all means. Two businesses, if you will, that she's been involved with, and several careers as a lawyer, a lecturer, and likewise knows 5 languages, which is truly tremendous in terms of, I can only imagine the thought process and the paradigm through which you view the world. So I'm very, very eager for the conversation, very openly. Dozen of university degrees and qualifications, so an extremely rich background in history, and most definitively a focus on physiology and psychology. And my favorite, very openly, Mariya, and I've shared it with you likewise, a citizen scientist. So that is a very, very unique label. Human happiness, well-being. We are very, very fortunate to get time with you. How are you?
I'm good. My absolute pleasure to join you.
The pleasure is ours. I'm eager and very, very much been looking forward to this conversation. So we'll move forward and dive in, and hopefully really, really, again, very fortunate to spend time with you. So thank you, Mariya.
My pleasure.
Mariya, I know we've talked very briefly about the conference that's coming up, most definitely the theme and the broad spectrum of the theme and the narrative. And I would love just to kind of hear your perspective of what you think relative to the reality that we're in today.
Yeah. I think the last few months, what they showed is how unprepared we are as individuals and the society. And it's not just about the last few months. Even before that, the life was already very fast-paced and unpredictable. And in particular, in my second TEDx talk, I was advocating that the solution to every problem is to make sure that an average human being is enlightened and empowered. You know, someone doesn't understand how they function if they lack that self-understanding. As a result, they also lack self-respect and self-love and self-care. And if one person doesn't exercise those things towards themselves, how would we expect them to exercise them towards others, and let alone the planet? So whatever problems we're talking, including poverty and racism and pollution and bullying and mental health issues, whatever that is, I strongly believe that the answer is to educate us, you know, in particular about our physiology and psychology, teach us how to be a happy, thriving, a human being that is happy and healthy. So I strongly believe that that would be the solution to everything.
Very well said. So as you kind of, if you can dig a little bit deeper, as you think about enlightenment, if you will, how do we come to the awareness and to the perhaps the recognition that we are more enlightened, if we use that word? Any thoughts there?
Yeah. Well, this is a very vast topic and a very vast process, and there's just so many things we still don't understand and don't know and don't even suspect that they exist, and we will be learning. But where to start, I think, is by educating about, in particular, how our brain functions. And this is what I'm doing. I'm researching research, opinion, studies, everything I can get my hands on about physiology and psychology behind our behavior, behind our success, behind our happiness, behind our well-being. So I'm putting together a so-called the foundation. That's the way I see it. You know, because in particular, when we read a book, when we listen to a TEDx talk, when we hear an interview, on its own, it makes sense, but then it's very difficult for us to put it all together. So we kind of end up with, as the way I see it, like scattered bricks on the ground, and we just struggle to build a building. And usually it takes about a decade for a person to finally pull information together. And now it might take even longer because there's more and more information that's getting thrown at us. So I think if every person understands the basics, the principles, the fundamentals of how we function mentally and physically, this is the best start.
So your focus, Mariya, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, just from kind of as you're describing it, is really to help us recognize what that foundation is so that we can achieve a higher degree of enlightenment and awareness and what have you.
Yes, absolutely. Of course,
Excellent.
we're all very different. We're unique, which is amazing. but there are certain principles that apply to everyone, just due to us being human beings. There's an expression where same, but different. So I think same part should be taught, while the different part should be learned further by the human being himself or herself.
Fantastic, fantastic. As you mentioned principles, can you as you kind of look at the themes of the conference, the narratives as we've kind of mentioned them all the way from uncertainty and risk and complexity and future proofing, and you look at the world and the reality in which we're in, what kind of insights can you offer really the world at large, because you truly are a world citizen in so many ways, but what kind of insights, if you will, can you offer us?
Yeah. Well, when it comes to physiology, I think the most important thing for us that we can do is to learn how to sleep. In this crazy world, in this fast-paced world that doesn't sleep, sleeping has become a skill. So this is something that we should be taught. And this is something that, if you ask the majority of specialists, if you ask them, what is it the one thing that I can do in order to become healthier, both physically and mentally, they're going to answer to you that improve quality of your sleep. This is the very first thing and the most important thing that we can do for our body and our brain. And when it comes to mental health and mental toughness, I think that when we in particular talk about things like anxiety and depression, the answer is not happiness. The answer is creating stronger resilience. This is the answer to the majority of mental health issues.
Excellent, excellent. Can you tell us more about kind of sort of your perspective and thoughts around resilience? How do we achieve resilience? How do we go beyond resilience relative to anti-fragility? But really, all around, it's a vast space. So, would love to kind of dive into your thoughts a little bit deeper there.
Yeah. The way I see resilience, I imagine it as a three-legged chair. So when you sit on a chair with three legs, if one of those legs is wobbly or not, too short, for example, you don't feel comfortable. It's hard to sit on the chair and you keep adjusting yourself. And if something is thrown at you, life throws things at us all the time. So something is thrown at you, it's more difficult to stay sitting on the chair. But if we make sure that all three legs are even and all three legs are sturdy, this is where it's going to be more, it's going to be easier for us to handle whatever comes our way. And those three legs are, so the most important leg is at the back, it's mental and physical health. And I do see them as being one leg, as, I see them being intertwined, and I don't understand why they're researched and taught separately. So I see it as one leg at the back, and two front legs are our relationships with other people, rather the depth of our connections with other people, and also what is we doing for our fulfillment. That's the third leg.
Fantastic, Mariya. Fantastic. And as you kind of look at the landscape, if you look at the broad landscape that we're all now trying to navigate, just anywhere we are in the world, what kind of guidance would you offer us as really things to sort of really embrace and keep in mind, if you will, going beyond the aspects that you already mentioned?
Yeah.
You know,
I think the main point to understand is that if we do want to improve the world, if we want to change the world, if we want to take it to the next level, we have to start with ourselves, with that person in the mirror. This is where it all begins, from within. If we understand that, if everyone understands that, this is when we'll see the main shift. And also, one of my concerns, let's put it this way, is that there's so much attention is given to creating awareness about existing problems. And there is also a wonderful, groups of people that create those quick fixes, but I call them band-aid solutions, which are also very, very important. But not enough attention is given to, okay, let's figure out why such and such problem actually takes place. As someone beautifully said, is that we keep fishing people out of the river, but no one goes up the river to see what the problem is. Why do people fall into the river in the first place? So in particular, it applies to issues like anxiety and depression. So, there's so much awareness already created around it, which is needed. And there are, quick fixes, which is also very, very needed to help those people to get out of that river. but barely anyone actually goes up the stream to see what's the problem, how to make sure that people don't fall, how to prevent that. And one of the reasons, because it is very difficult. It's very difficult to conduct all that research, to connect the dots, and to actually offer proper solutions that would work in the long run. But this is where we really need to shift our focus to whatever issue we're talking about.
Very well said. And one thing that and I'm sharing it because I'm really interested in your perspective on it, is I find that a lot of people avoid trying to become more aware and really focus elsewhere, because it's hard work to achieve a greater degree of awareness. It's very hard work. It's not easy.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Leading yourself is the hardest job that we're doing through our life. I think it was Tom Hardy who said that self-development, personal development, is like climbing that inner Everest that no one sees that you're doing, which is a really great analogy. So it is very, very hard. But also I think a lot of us, and me for most of my life, we take things for granted, and we somehow think that we owed certain things, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't take responsibility.
I really appreciate the way you're describing it. I have to. There's a particular post that you wrote about the grind, if you will, which really I really loved how you expressed it. And in particular, you come to the conclusion, and it's not about the grind, but rather it really is about focus, clarity of vision, and exercising discipline. I would love for you to just elaborate on kind of those three aspects that you eloquently described: focus, very explicitly, vision, and discipline.
Yeah. Well, I kept grinding most of my life for over 3 decades. I was in that constant grind. I was constantly busy. I was measuring my success by how busy I was. And of course, through things that I have achieved, you can see that I did work hard.
Yeah.
I did grind. Otherwise, you wouldn't achieve all of that. But I came to the conclusion that it's absolutely not the answer. Because when I look at those 3 decades of my life, I see them as a gray blur, and actually struggle to remember, were there any things that were making me happy? I was so busy being busy that I did not pay attention to myself at all. And this is the reason why I can't understand and can't stand when public figures and influencers throw this very famous quote, rise and grind. And I constantly see it on social media, in particular on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. It constantly keeps popping up, rise and grind. And I know they mean well, but it sends a really bad message to the audience, to their followers, because it's not about grind at all. And if you even look at them, at those influencers and public figures who throw the quote around, you can see that they take care of themselves like pretty well. They take care of themselves physically and mentally, and they have date nights with their life partners, and they go on holidays, and they meditate, and they do this and that. So actually, if you pay close attention, you will see that they don't grind. It's just when they do work hard, they do work smart. And the main point is that they focused. They laser focused on whatever it is that they're doing at the moment. They always laser focused. So they have clarity of what is they're trying to achieve, and they laser focused on achieving that.
Very eloquently said. So Mariya, thank you so much for continuing to share. I would love for you to kind of share with us sort of what was your wake-up call? What was the trigger that said, hold on, something isn't the way it should be?
Come to think of it, I just realized I had 3 wake-up calls. I just didn't listen. My first wake-up call was when I turned 35. And I was sitting in my bed, finally reflecting at my life and finally asking questions to myself. Am I where I want to be? And I realized that in terms of happiness, in terms of health and wealth and everything else, I wasn't where I thought I would be by that time. And I started realizing that just hardworking and grinding and being busy, it's not the answer. So I started doing research at that time into self-made figures to see what they were doing differently. And turned out that pretty much everything they were doing differently to me. But still, it wasn't, wasn't a wake up call big enough for me. And I continued grinding. I continued following into the habit of sprinting a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up with a burnout. So 2 years ago, I ended up with a major burnout. And it was so bad that I actually had to make coffee the night before and put it in the nightstand. So in the morning, when I wake up, I would have a huge cup of black coffee for me to, finally get off the bed. And
Wow.
still, it would take me a very, very long time to get off the bed. I was constantly in pain physically all over. And my brain was just getting foggier and foggier. And I couldn't function anymore. So I was very lucky to come across a DNA performance specialist. I think of her as my guardian angel. Her name is Alessandra Edwards. And we started working together. She guided me and she was telling me a lot of things, and I was doing a lot of research. And speaking of that, I'll always get asked, how did you climb out of your burnout? What was the first thing that you did? Sleeping. I started sleeping. Before that, I slept for like 3-4 hours a night, if lucky. But after that happened, I actually started allowing myself to sleep at least 7 hours. That
Wow.
was the first thing, the major thing that allowed me to finally start climbing out of my burnout. And then was, of course, a third experience for me when my dad passed away. It was the most dramatic experience of my life. And after I started recovering from that, um, this is when I think I realized most of the things. This is where I finally realized most of the life lessons that I found. Yeah, I think with that wake up calls all the time through our life, we just don't listen to them and we just keep falling back into doing things the way we were doing them because it's very difficult to change. I mean, of course, it's possible. And I see myself transforming and changing, in particular from a person who was experiencing severe constant anxiety for 3 decades.
Mm-hmm.
I'm finally feeling at peace. Not all the time. I still experience anxiety time to time, but I'm so much better. I feel like a completely different person. It takes time to rewire your brain, and to rewire your body, but it's absolutely possible. And if you decide that this is what you want and you put consistent effort into it, it's absolutely possible. And it's so worth it. Absolutely worth it.
Fantastic. I really appreciate the way you're describing it because it is fundamentally a decision that you do have to make and then action. It's not something that just comes to you without hard work again and really putting yourself into it.
You know, we usually think that in order to make crucial changes, we need to put pressure, we need to do something grand, but it's not the truth. The truth is that whatever we're trying to achieve in life, whether it's in regards to relationships or health or wealth or happiness, whatever it is, the secret is always in little things, in little efforts, but done consistently. That's the secret.
Very well said. Which actually reminds me of the other post that you had on LinkedIn about happiness and being an accumulation of joys. It's an extremely powerful expression.
Hmm, thank you.
You're most
Yes.
welcome.
Yes, you hear so many specialists now saying that happiness is just an accumulation of joys, an accumulation of little joys. And this is where I compare it to baking a cake. There's so many different cakes, and it really describes that happiness for every person is different. And, each cake consists of different ingredients, that is, joys. But the difference between dessert and happiness is that with the dessert, you can go buy it, you can get it, you know, but with happiness, you can't. With happiness, it is something that you create within yourself with what you have.
Hmm.
So I compared to baking a cake, and I did say that, hey,
Yeah.
I'm baking my happiness cake. How about you?
Yes. Yes. Definitely. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely. So I have a question. Maybe it's perhaps a off the mark question, if I'm going to call it that. You have so much to offer. I've got to ask: are you writing a book? Are you planning on writing a book? Because there's so much that I think we could all benefit from your voice, quite honestly, across the world in a very, very practical, humane way.
Thank you so much. It means so much coming from you. I really appreciate your kind words. One day I will, but at this point in time, I'm putting online program um, to offer those fundamentals, those basics, those principles to anyone who would like to learn them. So after that program, they would gain understanding what are those little things that they can start doing immediately in order to improve their health and their levels of happiness and overall their life. And so after that, every, like I said, every TEDx talk, every book, every interview that they come across would make sense. And they would be able to start building that building for themselves,
Hmm.
that would no longer be scattered bricks on the ground, but people would actually be able to build that building for themselves with everything, that every piece of information that they come across. But my main dream, well, one of my main dreams is to turn that online program into a core subject that would be taught in particular at universities. I strongly believe that those things have to be taught starting from kindergarten and from school and through university and a workplace. It has to be core training and it has to be done consistently, continuously. So it's a dream of mine to turn my online program into a core subject in particular to be taught at unis. And maybe one day that program will be used to train people who want to relocate to Mars. That's another vision of mine.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well,
Hmm.
you truly are a visionary. And I have one other question, which I'd love your perspective and insights on. You know, a lot of people will hear our conversation and will kind of try to digest it and say, you know, something. I work in a business. I work in a in the workplace. How how do we take what you've learned and the wisdom that you've shared and truly help people embrace it in the workplace on an everyday basis? Any thoughts there?
It is so very important. In particular, I'm thinking about my legal years. I'm a recovering lawyer.
Yeah, yeah.
So, in particular in that industry, people work such long hours. And also, it is one of the most depressed and most drinking professions. And there is a reason to that. In particular, when we go through law school, we're taught not to connect with other classmates because they are competitors,
Mm.
and when they become our colleagues, they'll continue being our competitors. And also, we shouldn't be really connecting to our clients either, because if we feel for our client, we're more likely to give them our own advice. So just starting from the way we're educated at law school in particular is to be, a lone wolf,
Mm-hmm.
which, for success, actually, there's nothing that can be further from the truth. That in order to be successful, it's not about being competitive at all. If anything, it's about collaboration and about relationships, So it's just an example with the legal industry where problems start, they don't start at the workplace, they start at how we are educated before we come to a workplace. And when we do come to a workplace, most of the business owners or managers, there's a difference between being a leader and a manager. Yes.
Yep.
So most managers, they think that if you work crazy hours, like if you stay after hours at your desk, it means you're working hard and you care. And so this is the reflection of how much you care and how much, how productive you are, which also is, nothing can be further from the truth. It's been already proven. There's been so many studies done that actually people who work shorter hours, and in particular 4 instead of 5 days, they actually get more done, and they get better quality work done. So there's got to be that shift happening. It has to happen to actually see the truth and to dismiss misconceptions, in particular about what makes a person productive, and in particular about competitiveness versus collaboration.
Very well said. Very well said. Well, you are a truly a tremendous soul and a fountain of wisdom. So we definitely appreciate time with you today. Any sort of
Thank
closing
you.
comments at all to share with the world, Mariya?
Yeah. One of the major lessons in life that I learned was that, yes, like as we mentioned, happiness is something that you create within yourself. Most of my life, I kept attaching it to another degree, to another career, to another relationship, to maybe certain things, or to going on holidays. So I always attached it, and it always felt like I was chasing it the way, you're chasing a carrot that is tied in front of you.
Yeah.
But no matter how fast you run, it just keeps escaping you because it's in front of you, just on that stream.
Yeah.
So my life truly changed after I finally realized that happiness is about little joys. It's about all those moments and experiences that we have in life. And as Albert Einstein said, that there are only two ways to live life: either to perceive everything as a miracle or to think that nothing is. So once we start actually enjoying little things and create little experiences and train our brain to see those miracles, this is where life really changes for much, much, much better.
Very well said. And on a very, very personal level, I think I shared with you, I have died 3 times. And to me, very, very exactly as you described it, everything is an absolute miracle. So I completely agree with you. Thank you so much for your time, Mariya. Thank you so
My
much.
pleasure.
Thank you. I hope you will allow us to do this again in the future. It's been truly tremendous.
I'd love to. I'd love to.
Thank you so much, Mariya. Take good care.
Me too.
Thank you.